I think we're actually live now. JT, hi, how are you? We'll just give it a few minutes while we get a few people in. Hoot, owl, holler, hi. Yes, I am ready to start growing a tomato small forest, I think, than I did in 2020. And thank you very much for that super chat. That is very super of you. Much appreciated, it really is. Yeah, it's going to be a bit of a different year this year because the polytunnel won't be the same as it was in 2020. Will be a little bit different this year with the garden room. I was wondering if I was going to actually make it tonight. We got to work this morning and there was a little bit of rain falling down, and then all of a sudden the heavens opened and we had huge amounts of snow. Monkey chops high. Hope you're all doing okay. Yeah, and it snowed all day. And by 11 o'clock, all of the office staff were bailing out. Nelly, hi. Is this pay-per-view? You can do if you want. Lots of people starting to pile in. Ash, Steve, hi. Yeah, as I was saying, 11 o'clock, heavens opened with lots of snow. And all the office staff at work started bailing out, panicking that they wouldn't get home. But we ploughed on to the end. And yeah, it did come down. We got quite a bit of snow. More at work, actually, than there is outside the house here tonight when I got home. But it did make for an interesting journey on the way home. It amazes me all the time, the slightest bit of different weather, whether it's a little bit of rain or a lot of rain sometimes, or a bit of snow, and it's like carnage on the road. Everybody's all over the place and loads of cars broken down. So I was happy to get home. I was happy to see there wasn't quite as much snow outside the window here as there was outside the window at work today. So we've got a few people in now. Just a quick look and see if there's anybody else that I've missed. I don't think there is. So thanks to everybody for taking the time to join us today on the live stream, and of course for taking the time to watch and to comment on the videos I put up each week now. Really do appreciate you taking the time to do that. There's a couple more piled in. Janice, hi. Another one from the US, but Florida, so I'm guessing you're not having snow in Florida. I'm guessing it's quite warm there. So yeah, if you are new to the channel, please do feel free to hit that subscribe button. And while we're on the subject, it would be nice if we could get some thumbs up today, just so that Google knows that this is a nice channel and they just knock me up the ratings a little bit and share the word. It's cold in Florida, Janice. I'm not buying that. What temperature is it there? Sean, hi. Nice to see you in the live stream again. Yeah. So before we launch into the main topic for today, just a quick note about the prize giveaway that I was talking about at the weekend. I'll be doing the draw this weekend, so do keep an eye out for that. A few of you left comments in that video about the prize draw and said that you'd forego your place in the draw to give people who might not be as advanced on their prepping journey more of a chance of winning. That is very gracious of you. So well done and thank you for that. And it will certainly help the other people who might not be as advanced in their preps as you are. So again, very good of you to actually take the time to say that and indeed to think that. Oxygen Farmer, Sheriff, hi. Anybody else I've missed? Isaac, hi. So we've got quite a few in now. It should tell me somewhere. 25 people and 10 of you have given it a thumbs up. Thank you for that. Allegedly, I don't know. I'm not a YouTube guru, but I hear it all the time in different channels that the more activity there is, whether that's comments or likes, etc., on the videos, it does help you push you up the rankings so that your video content is pushed out to more people. So the more activity we can get, the better. Solar, hi. Dog Day Survival, hi. Scotland, I bet you're a bit cooler up there, and I'm guessing you've got more snow up there than we have down here as well. I've been watching the weather forecasts, and you've had like -10 up there. Please keep it there. Don't send it down here. Barry, hi, new to the channel, welcome. I do appreciate everybody that takes the time to come on here. It is nice to see, and I'm sure I've mentioned this in quite a few videos and certainly in the live streams, it is nice to see that growing little community. There's quite a little chat going on already. That community that I'm just talking about is actually there. People are exchanging comments between each other already. So it is very nice to see. So today's topic, Lewis, hi. Hull, you're not far away then. Don't know if you've had snow there or not today. If you just joined in, I was talking about my journey from work today. Surprised everybody with loads of snow. I'm hoping that we don't get a freeze tonight because there's an awful lot of it still on the ground and a lot of it's kind of turned to that watery slush. So if it does freeze, it's going to make for an interesting journey into work tomorrow. So fingers crossed that it doesn't do that. Yeah, today's topic, I titled it, Are You Prepared for Austerity? If anybody doesn't know what we mean by austerity, it's a situation where people's living standards are reduced because of some kind of economic difficulty. That could be on a personal level, where you're having to cut back your spending on non-essential items because you've had some problem in meeting your normal weekly or monthly financial needs. A good example of that could be that you've lost your job, and I'll touch on that a little bit later on. But on a kind of wider countrywide scale, essentially that's when the government implements some kind of economic or political policies which are designed to reduce its spending because it's having difficulty itself paying the bills for the country. And normally when we talk about austerity, there are two things that generally happen. Government will either raise taxes because that's where it gets its money from. It gets it from the working people out in the population, or they'll cut back on spending on services that they deliver to the population. And if it's really tough, they'll do both. And you'll see a combination of tax rises and cutbacks in spending, government spending. Here in the UK, I'm sure it's happened in lots of other countries. It certainly did in Europe. But back in 2008, we had that big financial crash when there were lots of banks going under, lots of businesses going under. And that caused huge damage to economies all around the world. And here in the UK, it led to almost a decade, 10 years of austerity measures. So with that in mind, it's kind of worth pointing out that back when all of that 2008 crash started, in 2009, the budget deficit, so the difference between the money that the government was taking in versus the money the government was paying out or spending, the deficit was at 175 billion, which was a historic record. That was the highest in history, at 175 billion. So fast forward a little bit, and we started our latest crisis in 2020. Well, in April 2020, the budget deficit for the UK was 187 billion, so more than the deficit back in the 2008 crash. in the subsequent months in 2020, so between April and November, on top of that 187 billion that we were already in deficit, the government borrowed another 240 billion. So, and they're still borrowing every month. Also, during 2020, the UK economy shrank by 11%, which is the biggest economic decline in 300 years. And despite huge levels of government intervention and support for wages for people who were put on furlough, and various grants and loans that were given out to businesses and the self-employed, despite all of that, just between August and October in 2020, over 370,000 people were made redundant. That's massive figures. The latest predictions for unemployment are that in this year, 2021, we're going to exceed 2.5 million. For viewers elsewhere, particularly in the States, I appreciate these figures might seem a little bit small. But for a country with a population of 70 million, which is like that big compared to the US, which is that big, it's big numbers for us, huge numbers, in fact, for us. And yeah, unemployment is forecast to rise, and the predictions for 2021 are between 7% to 11% of the population, or the working population. So again, huge numbers. And the kind of crucial thing to think about 2021, and I think I mentioned this in previous videos, we have a lot of government stimulus going on right now, job retention scheme, paying wages. We've got business grants, we've got rate relief, we've got a ban on kicking people out of houses, bank repossessions, we've got a insistence that mortgage companies give relief periods to people so they can stop paying the mortgage for a few months. All of that comes to an end at the end of March. So I'm guessing, it is a guess, I'm guessing that come the end of March, we're going to see another huge spike in unemployment and in businesses going out of business. So the reality is in 2021, we're going to face some really significant economic problems, which will be probably as bad, or if not worse, than we saw as a result of that now famous 2008 crash. So rather than focus on, as I have done just, the bad stuff, I thought maybe it's a chance for me to offer some suggestions, and perhaps you too in the comments to offer some suggestions as to what people might be able to do to get themselves ready. Because although it hasn't started yet, the economic decline, I'm guessing that it will certainly start to pick up pace by the end of March, when all of those government packages start coming to an end. Let me just quickly scan through the comments. Ashby, start looking at ideas from those who survived the Depression. You're right, there's been lots of YouTube videos kicking around. In fact, one channel has been doing a kind of a reading session from a book on that subject. And clearly the Great Depression was exactly where it says in the tin. It was a 2008 style crash times several degrees. And it was a global thing. Whereas this COVID thing, some countries will fare better than others. I guess it depends on how well they've adapted to COVID and how strict their measures were being implemented in those countries. But certainly Europe, here in the UK, and I'm kind of guessing similarly in the States, I do see quite difficult times ahead. I'm just noticing that some of you are popping up suggestions already. Declutter and make money. Yeah, in fact, I'd have a little checklist hiding down here out of sight with my suggestions, and decluttering is kind of similar to one that I've put down on my little list. So yeah, ways that we can kind of prepare ourselves and our families to go through all of this. Um, the first thing that I would say people should look at is what is their employment situation. I've mentioned that for myself in a couple of videos over the last probably 4 or 5 months. Um, the company where I work went through a restructuring program, and quite a number of people were actually made redundant, as were people from lots of companies around where I work across the UK. As I've already said from the figures, huge numbers have gone out of work. So it's worth just taking the time to look at your own situation and that of your family. Is your job safe? If your job did become at risk, what are your chances of finding a job? What are your skills? Have you got a CV up to date? Do you know what the job market's like in your area? Have you looked lately? Is there anything? Apologies, just 1 second, because I've just seen a super chat come up. Shawnee, hi, and many thanks for that super chat. Do appreciate that. I'll gradually work my way towards another solar panel at this rate, which is very nice and very much appreciated. There's a couple of other people just popped in as well. Nath, or Nath, not quite sure how you pronounce that. Angie D, hi. Mikey B. So quite a few in now. We're sitting at 30, which for me is real big numbers. So I'm very pleased. And thank you all for taking the time. So what's your situation like? How easy would it be or not for you to find another job? Is there something that you can do on the side? There are lots of people on the internet, particularly YouTube and other social media, who do have side jobs that they can do from home or in the spare time. There's certainly been a boom in things like deliveries. People just using their normal car to do deliveries for people like Amazon. What about family members? Does your spouse, partner work now? If not, could they, even if it's just part-time? Grown-up children living at home? Same kind of thing. These are all suggestions. They're not me telling you to go out and get a job. So don't take any of this the wrong way. But times are very unstable right now, and set to be even more unstable. I certainly didn't expect the company where I work to be making so many people redundant. It totally came out of the blue, and the number was surprising to everybody. I say surprising, that's probably the wrong word, upsetting, shall we say, to everybody. So you just don't know nowadays. Everything might look great one day, and then you go into work the next day and suddenly, the world is falling. A couple more people just popped in. Jack and Jill, hi. So it's worth having a little think about employment prospects, things you could do extra in terms of employment, or people that might not be working now within your family group, helping to contribute by working. Kind of logical, really. In addition to trying to find extra revenue through employment, what about reducing bills? Lots of ways you can do this, because we all have habits. Do you go out every day and buy a cup of coffee instead of making a flask? Do you eat lunch out instead of taking sandwiches? All right, perhaps not in COVID, but days out or cinema trips or gym memberships or things like that. Things that are not essential, that you might be able to just rein in your spending. Not saying you should all become monks and sit at home and do nothing, but it might come to that. So the sooner you consider things, the quicker you'll be able to react if something did go wrong. Same kind of thing with basic utility bills, the amount that you use on internet packages, cable TV or satellite TV packages, gas, electric bills, water bills. Are you washing your car twice a week and bumping up your water bill? So things like utility bills that are regular bills coming in, is there a way that you can reduce those perhaps? Shopping habits, I've kind of touched on that with your reducing your expenditure, but what about food shopping? Um, are you buying the most expensive brand of washing powder or chocolate or biscuits, or um, is it the most expensive on the supermarket shelf? And could you get by not buying the most expensive on the supermarket shelf? Similarly, which is something that I'm pushing to death in my last few videos, is the subject of growing your own food. Could you? Or could you grow more of it? So it's all ways of trying to reduce the amount of money that's going out so that hopefully you can get some of that held back in reserve. Or if you do suffer a drop in income, it'll help balance out your bank account. Talking about bank accounts, I've touched on this in videos as well. Debt. If can you start drawing down on debt? And the key one really to try and draw down on is secured debt. I'm really thinking about vehicles and houses, your more expensive assets that you might have borrowed for. You certainly would have on your house, because those are the things that can be taken away by the bank. Unsecured debt can't. They can chase you through the courts, and maybe eventually, over a prolonged period of time, you might have to come to some kind of arrangement for repayment. But things like houses and cars, if they're secured debt, they can just turn up and take it. So I'd concentrate on secured debt if you are going to go through a period of trying to reduce your debts. One of the commenters commented on this in a way earlier. Can you raise money by other sources? So we're about selling stuff on eBay, Craigslist, stuff that maybe you don't use now, that you've got lying around. Have a little inventory. And is there stuff that you could be selling on eBay or Craigslist? So lots of different things that you could possibly consider as ways of preparing yourself for times when your income is reduced or gone altogether, or as a way now of trying to save a little bit of money by cutting back your expenses and banking that money, again, just in case your income stream is reduced or lost. A little quick look at the comments again. Somebody's talking about buying gold and silver. I always miss the conversations about gold. That's probably because I haven't got any. Yeah, so why am I banging on about all of this? Because we haven't seen this economic crisis arise yet, but I'm fairly sure you're all quite intelligent people, and I'm sure that it must be in the back of your mind that things with the economy are not looking great, and are certainly set to look even less great as we progress through the year. Well, going back to that austerity theme, what potentially is going to happen? Ignoring your own personal circumstances with potential unemployment, more the government program. I would hazard a guess that come April, I don't know what your tax year is in the US, but whenever you have your annual budget, I would hazard a guess that taxes are going to go up. There are lots of different ways in which government can apply taxation. Generally, the biggest one is through income tax. Governments generally are reluctant to tinker with income tax because it's a massive vote loser. However, having said that, this government is only recently elected. This is the end of their first year of a 4-year term. So they've still got a way to go. So it wouldn't damage them politically so much off the back of the COVID crisis to suggest that they are being forced to raise income tax, which technically is true. They are. That is their only source of revenue at the end of the day. So for sure, tax is going to go up in some way, whether they bite the bullet and be brave and go for the income tax, or whether they do it by stealth through some other means, by raising VAT, or I think you call it sales tax in the US, which people might not notice as much as a direct hit on the pay packet through income tax. But they are going to go up. Equally, local government tax, council tax, again, not sure what you call that in the States, but it's the tax that's applied. It's like a housing tax. I think you call it something like that in the States. We already know that's going up because all of the local councils have already said it is, and estimates vary. It was suggested around 4%, but the latest rumour mill in the media is that it could be significantly more than that. I guess we'll have to wait and see in April. In fact, I think that comes in May and then effected in April. But it's coming soon to a house near you. Prices. We've not seen huge hikes in prices. There's been a gradual, slow increase over the last year or so. I've already said that I think food is going to go up, but that's not necessarily due to COVID. One thing that will go up in an economic crisis is renting, if you're renting your house. As the economic crisis hits, and we saw this back in 2009, 2010, after the last big crash, people were forced into selling their house, whether that's through unemployment or other reasons, and house prices tumbled as people tried desperately to sell their houses. Now, whenever that happens, those people that have their own house through a mortgage have to live somewhere, and invariably that is rented accommodation. So whilst there's a glut of owned houses for sale, conversely, there's a steep demand rise for rented accommodation, and landlords aren't dumb. As soon as that demand starts to go up, then they quickly figure out, I can actually start charging more, because there's far more people wanting to rent houses than there are rented houses available. So rent prices definitely in any economic crisis suddenly do start to go up. And of course, if you're in rented accommodation, that could impact your personal family budget, because all of a sudden you're paying more than you usually do for your rent. So yeah, lots of reasons why I'm kind of banging on about this, but whilst I apologise for banging on about it, in some ways I don't, because I'd rather you all were thinking about it rather than suddenly stumbling into a personal financial crisis a little bit later down the road. And I am fairly convinced it's coming. Other topics that I wanted to talk about tonight. Let me just quickly check through the comments and see if anybody, or if you haven't commented and you've got a comment about austerity or potential austerity this year, now's the time to bang them in, and we'll see. Somebody's talk. What? Simon Parks. Well, we've got some weird conversations going on in the chats about forced vaccinations. Lots of conversation about false vaccinations or adverse reactions, bad reactions. Yeah. I'll digress for a second. I didn't want to go into COVID too much because it's the kind of thing that suddenly gets your video bounced, and Google are monitoring, allegedly, live stream chat. But for what it's worth, I'm avoiding it. And even on the current timetable, I don't think I would be scheduled until the end of this year. But it's come in a hurry. I'm not sure what's in it. So personally, I'll be putting it off as long as I can. But there is a larger conversation to be had there as to whether or not people will have a choice. And I don't mean that somebody's going to come at the point of a gun and tell you to take it now, but we're already seeing airlines insisting that you need negative tests. One is saying that you need a vaccination, and it is only a matter of time. And I think employers at some point might be pushed into asking their workforce as a health and safety thing. And really, that's as far as I dare go. on the subject of vaccinations and COVID. Somebody's talking about cash out the bank. Is it worth taking a lump of cash out the bank? I do anyway. I always keep an amount of cash. I've got a safe in a safe somewhere in the house, but I always do. It wouldn't be the first time that I'd gone to the ATM machine and found there was no money in it, and had to rush back to the house to get some. If something does go wrong and the ATM stop working, or the card payments at the stores stop working, or it's a proper grid down, cash is king, and if you haven't got it, you're going to be kind of buggered, really. So I always keep some just in case, because you never know. Plus, of course, it's there as a emergency fund if something dramatic happened. I don't know, my washing machine bust, and it was towards the end of the month and there was not enough money in the bank. At least I know I've got some money that might bail me out. Quick look somewhere else. Yeah, the rest of it is back to vaccines again. So other topics, one of them is kind of connected, and it's something that somebody commented on one of my recent videos, and we had a bit of an exchange, and they're on the chat right there, Nelly on the land. We had a conversation. There's been a lot of media reporting over the last couple of days about school kids' meals, now that they're not at school, and schools were providing free school meals, either through vouchers or through food parcels given to the family, for the family to use to provide lunchtime meals for the kids that should have been at school, and obviously now weren't because of COVID. And that was kind of developed into a different conversation about if we were in a true something hit the fan scenario, what would you do if somebody came to your door asking for food? And that was particularly around family members. So there was a bit of a discussion there, and whether it was worth putting a video out on the subject of not so much what would you do, but what would you need in terms of a packed up meal box for a family of four to feed themselves for a week. And that's quite interesting because that ties in with prepping in general and trying to figure out how much food you need to store away. So I'll not go into that right now in the live stream, but I will explore that for a future video. And you can kind of combine the two topics, the what we do if somebody came to the door asking for food, you know, your auntie or brother or whoever, and what could you give them to tide them over for a period of a week as a family unit. And by extrapolating that out, you would also be able to work out what your individual family would need to store away to sustain your individual family, and perhaps some exploration of food variations to try and keep a bit of variety in the meals rather than having just rice and beans, rice and beans, rice and beans 7 days a week. A few people talk about seed potatoes. Somebody's ordered seed potatoes, solar. If you saw my video of the weekend, I have some tubers ready to plant out, and I'm sorely tempted. I'll touch on that in a second because it's on my list. I'm jumping ahead, but I'm just picking up from your comments as I go along. It's a bit of conversation about other things that people might want to stash away as part of their preps. Next kind of topic really was things that you might want to get now. You'll have seen my video of the weekend, and indeed since, where I've been stocking up on compost. It was kind of prompted because when the COVID crisis first started back in, well, when the lockdowns first started back in March and April, We had huge issues with stuff going off the shelves. Everyone was panic buying. And then it turned from panic buying food into, well, we're all working from home now, so let's empty the shelves of DIY, do-it-yourself construction type materials, and gardening materials and supplies just flew off the shelves. And because of the supply chain disruption from COVID, those shelves weren't getting refilled. So whilst it wasn't a crisis for people eating because the supermarkets kept going, things like construction materials, gardening materials and supplies did dry up. You might remember quite a while ago, I was going to paint the garden room and I was running around for days, in fact over a week, trying to find fence paint. So yeah, lots of stuff disappeared, and I'm kind of really just preempting what might disappear as a result of this lockdown we're going through now, and perhaps as things start to tighten up economically. So for me, it's things like compost and seeds. But if you've got anything planned for this year that is going to require materials, it might not be a bad idea to just get those now rather than waiting for the warmer weather and sunshine to come, because other people might be eyeing those up and they might not be there, as we saw early in 2020. Moving on, things that I'm thinking of. I'm just checking the time. We're, 35 minutes in. This weekend, I've kind of suggested all the way along this last couple of weeks, the focus for me is planting. I really do want to try and get cracking with the planting this weekend. Things I'm thinking of is the hardier plants like perhaps cabbage, cauliflower and carrot, but I am really tempted to have a go at potatoes. So if anybody who's on the live stream has had success with early planting of potatoes, when did you plant those? How early was early for you? Because I'm guessing that second week in January, that's very early. I have seen a couple of people who have put seed potatoes in very, very small pots in the house with a view to later on putting those in bigger pots and then put them in a polytunnel. But if anybody has had a go at early planting, particularly in January, then let me know. Just having a quick scan through the comments. Heirloom organic seeds, Ash. Yes, absolutely. Somebody's a kamikaze gardener. Stick it in and worry about it later. How do we tell what's good soil? To be honest, if you've got any doubts about your soil, I mean, okay, you can go to great lengths and you can start digging it up, getting rid of some of it, replacing with compost or other organic material and gradually improving the condition of the soil, where you can add sand and things to the soil to help loosen it up. Cheap and simple solution, why not consider pots, containers and raised beds, as I've got on the field? I mean, I could go to the time and effort and expense of getting a tractor in and ploughing the field. But with it being clay soil, which is not great, I would have to go through that process of trying to improve the soil. So for me, it was a bit of a no-brainer, raised beds and pots. So if you are having issues about condition of soil, or if you've just got a small space, I mean, you might have a concrete garden or yard, for all I know. Yeah, pots and raised beds. Barry Page, hi Barry, check out Homegrown Veg. I already am subscribed to his channel, and one of the reasons is he comes from where I grew up, in the north, the proper north of the country, and he is totally in pots. And he if anybody hasn't seen it, Homegrown Veg, have a little look, because he grows an amazing amount of stuff in pots, where I have had pretty good success actually with things like carrots and potatoes in pots. He way outshines me. He must just have some kind of magic fingers. I don't know. But yeah, good tip there. Homegrown veg. Anybody who is looking at pots and containers, do take a look at that, because he's got, I don't know how many years worth of videos, but there's a lot. And he is very, very simple and straightforward and shows the entire process. He doesn't just say, there's my pot, I'm sticking something in, and then all of a sudden, magically, you get a reveal of this huge bumper crop. He'll show you stage by stage as they're growing. So thanks for that, Barry, for mentioning that channel, because it is good. Ash has started off potatoes in the house. Very good. True potato seeds. Sean, you would be asking that because you've got some. As does Shawnee. I don't know if I can't see her on the comments now. She's received hers as well. As I've said in an early video, there is a channel called Torp Tomaten. It's a girl in Austria who has a whole channel devoted to true potato seeds. I am going to try now in January, because you kind of pot them on. So you'll put them as the seed, and then as they start developing, they grow quite spindly. Then repot those and bury most of the stalk so that just the top sticks out, until eventually the weather is warm enough, probably for us in the UK, middle to back end of April, by which time they'll be quite substantial plants, and then you can stick them into a huge tub if you want. So I'm going to have a go this month. Whether I do the true potato seeds this weekend or next, I'm not sure, but I will definitely be doing something this weekend, and probably a little bit extra the following weekend. So if you want to plant at the same time as me, let me know, and we'll agree a day to do it. And you can let me know how you get on. Ash has got thermal wellies, £40 each. That's expensive wellies. Jerusalem artichokes, Paul says, yeah, I've tried those. You've seen those on the previous video. Andrew's growing lettuce and cucumber. I've not done lettuce because I'm not a big salad fan. Cucumbers, interestingly, yes, I've tried those. I wouldn't say I had huge success with those, but a lot of the stuff in my polytunnel in 2020 struggled with being scorched by the sun and me having difficulty keeping on top of the watering. But cucumbers, yes, I probably will do some this year, and a small amount of tomatoes. So Hoot, where you said forest earlier, not a forest, maybe a copse rather than a forest. Lots of people saying they're going to be growing indoors. It is a good way of getting started, and avoiding the frosts. Jack and Jill, hard to grow in sand on the coast of Florida. Get some pots and a bag of compost. Jules, hi. Sola says Torp Mountain is great. She is so knowledgeable because she actually breeds new varieties by cross-pollination. If you're not looked to take a look, if you're interested in true potato seeds, if you're not interested in true potato seeds, don't, because that's all she does on that channel. Some of the fresh lettuce in the shops might be as much as a year old, says Mickey. No, I didn't know that. How about the fruit and veggies? Angie, yes. I was peeling potatoes. Well, not peeling, I was scraping potatoes that I bought in the shop. And some of them have like scab, which is fine. You can peel or scrape that off. But what I did notice is, and I'm guessing it's frost damage from where they've been stored and they shouldn't have been stored. Because as you scrape or peel, you just see like a grey kind of colour to the skin in like a blemish. If you then start digging away at that, inside you'll find it's black, like a star shape almost design. Yeah, frost damage. I've noticed that, and I've also noticed that carrots from the supermarket, they're within a matter of 2 or 3 days, they're like rotting. So there are issues with fruit and veg, certainly this year, because I can't say really that I noticed it that much last year, but I am noticing it this year for sure. COVID Hunter, how the devil are you, mate? I didn't see you pop up there onto the chat. Yeah, he can tell you how much snow we had today because he was there. Tell them all how nice that goose was that I shared with you whilst you're on. Then what else we got going on? Chrome potatoes in molds, incorporate some grass cuttings. Yes, you can. In fact, some people grow them in straw bales. Potatoes are quite forgiving, really. For me, it's just for convenience, really. If I grow them in the tubs that you've seen me grow them in, I know roughly what I'm going to get out of that tub and how long it'll keep. So I'm kind of trying to grow them in either fortnightly or monthly, depending on the size of the pot, batches. And that way I'm hoping this year, as I grow more and more of them, I'll be able to get succession cropping all the way through. And if I tip a pot, I know that that's a month worth, if that makes sense, as opposed to just throwing them all in one bed and then having to wait for them all to come at the same time, and then the issues around storing. So that's the plan. Each pot equates to, give or take, a month as I go through the year. If I've got enough pots, though, I might try and get that to 2 weekly because they're easier to manage and store. My kitchen, I glanced at it then, my kitchen is like that. It's tiny and it's full of long-term stores. So my potato space is very small. Well, the whole vegetable space is very small. What else we got going on? Probably been sold all the stuff stocked up for Brexit. You could be right. Sort of channel that did. There is a channel that did that with potatoes. I'm guessing, Nelly, you're talking about that heaped up in grass or straw. COVID, the goose was delicious. It was. I can't believe how good that was. And I actually told you something that wasn't factually correct. I said he'd given me some Canada goose, which I thought it was at the time. If you're watching, Gary, thank you again. That they were really, really tasty. I did say that at the weekend when we were having a chat, but it never hurts to say thank you again, does it? Yeah, they weren't Canada geese. There was something called pinkfoot. Now, to be honest, I've never heard of those. But apparently they're like a invasive pest species, as are Canada geese, actually, that have come over from Scandinavia. But I'd never heard of them. But yeah, they were particularly tasty, really, really tasty. So if you get any more, Gary, yes, please. But I'm going to have to keep an eye out for those now because that's kind of piqued my interest in geese. I wasn't really much of a goose fan before, but they were really tasty. Sorry, I'm digressing about geese. Hang veggies on wall, Nelly. I've seen a lot of adverts lately for, that Chinese website, Wish, that you can order. It's a bit like Alibaba, but you don't know quite what you're going to get. And funnily enough, whether it's just the time of year, they've been advertising like racks that you stand against the wall. And so you end up with like 20 pots sort of staged in rows and columns into a sort of fence panel size affair, which isn't a bad idea. If you're growing things like your salad stuff, your lettuces or your herbs and stuff, wouldn't be much good for carrots and spuds, but for your salad stuff, that might actually work very, very well. and you're getting the maximum possible out of the vertical footprint. You're getting the maximum vertical space out of a small ground footprint. And you probably could make those. If you looked at the picture on the website, it wouldn't be too hard, says me, Mr. Non-engineer. But you should be able to replicate some kind of similar thing. Meat shortages in terms of chicken with these culls, Ash. In the UK at the minute, I'm saying not, because the big breeding places, they're massively regulated and inspected anyway. The place that avian flu's had an impact in the UK so far has been small-scale farms or sort of households that keep chickens in the garden. There's been a lot of stories about inspectors going around houses where somebody's reported them for having chickens, and these inspectors been really quite harsh with them, and in many cases just killing the chickens. So I don't anticipate that. What I do anticipate is the larger scale, your pigs and your cows, beef, because there's a shortage globally on feed. Stuff that normally, like soy or other grains, that's gone for feed purposes, because there's a shortage generally of grains globally, they've been diverted. So animal feed is in short supply or really expensive, which will have an impact on production levels. So pigs and beef, perhaps, and China in particular is massively importing all manner of food. You know, they're buying up global stocks at a massive rate. So that might cause shortages elsewhere, for example, for us in the UK or Europe. So not chickens per se, but pigs and beef, yeah, I'm suspecting there might be. What else we got? Janice had 14 acres in Illinois. So what have you done with it? Have you still got it, or have you moved now? I do get envious, and COVID's still here, so he can bear this out. When our American cousins, bless you, talk about buying 10 acres, 20 acres, 40 acres, we're all jealous here in the UK, because the price of land in the UK is astronomical compared to what you guys are paying out there. And just to add insult to injury, if you did buy the land, which I have clearly, but it's only 1.6 acres, you're kind of buggered then as to what you can do with it. You have to really take it as a long-term battle in order to try and do any kind of homestead, as you American colleagues would understand the word homestead. You have to really go through a lot of angst, agony, and long period of time to try and battle your way to establish a homestead on that land. And even then, you might not be successful. So if anybody wonders why I'm doing what I'm doing, the way that I'm doing it, i.e. a small cabin that is more of a shack than a homestead house, that's why. The rules here are so strict and restrictive and, without swearing, very annoying, to say the least. But again, I digress. What else we got? Chickens, Ice Age Farmer. Ash has mentioned Ice Age Farmer channel. He's having problems, actually. I suspect he's already trying to broadcast on different things other than YouTube because he's having problems. He's been banging about food shortages for literally years. Whether that was ground solar minimum, the effect on the seasons, and then the impact that the change of seasons and weather patterns has on harvesting and planting, or whether that's the recent sort of COVID crisis and countries like China, as I was just talking about, absolutely buying up everything and leaving shortages. He's studied to death the food supply chain, including other kind of more contentious topics such as laboratory grown meat. So yes, have a look at Ice Age Farmers channel. Really informative channel if you're interested in food supply and potential problems in food supply later down the line. Paul carries on being wet for longer. Potato harvest will fail. You're talking about new potatoes, I'm guessing, since we're in January. Luckily, we buy most of our new potatoes from outside the UK anyway, Cyprus, Egypt, and even further afield. But we might have issues with getting main crop potatoes. We've had a massive amount of rain back end of 2020, and it's not given up yet. If it's anything like previous years, because we did have problems last year with harvesting, whether that's through weather or lack of fruit pickers, I would just say food in general is on rocky ground at the moment. And the more you can do yourself to be more self-reliant for food, the better, whether that's long-term stores or growing your own. We're going to have all manner of problems this year for sure. And weather, given what happened last year, could be one of those. JT loves Ice Age Farmer, a real good channel. It's in depth, so if you're not into, or if you have difficulty with stats, statistics, or if food is not your bag, it's perhaps not for you. But if you are worried about food and want to know more about why we might have issues, then yeah, go-to channel for that for sure. Many homesteads don't succeed. You're right about the work that goes along with it, and I think I've mentioned that in numerous videos about whether it's there's not enough time, or this was more difficult than I thought it would be, or this took twice as long as I thought it would. When I think of the effort last year in just those few raised beds and then trying to keep on top of that polytunnel, a massive amount of sort of time and energy and money went into doing that. And since I'm ramping up scale this year, I dread to think how much time and energy I'm going to be investing this year. But I did learn a lot of lessons last year, which this is what it's all about, really. It is learning all the time. And if I'm going to be doing more of it, at least now I know what works and what doesn't, so I can work a little bit smarter than I did last year. But I guess you'll find out in the videos as I go through the year, but it is hard work. You might have heard me many a time as I sit down kind of out of breath. It's because I'm knackered. I've just been humping compost or wood or whatever. There is quite a bit of heavy lifting. So the more you're doing in terms of growing them your own, the more heavy lifting there is. Mikey B, food is still cheap. You're absolutely right, and I keep saying that. I did that video the other day about what can you buy for £2. Really, I do say get it now, because it's not going to stay that way. We have been really lucky in the UK. Lots of people do, and I don't mean a political rant, but a lot of people continuously bang on about being in poverty and they can't afford to feed the kids. I think what they really mean is they can't afford to feed the kids takeaway food, restaurant meals, Mackie D's, whatever nice, expensive stuff they would like to have. there is no real excuse, and I don't care if we get some iffy comments. There is no excuse for kids going hungry in the UK due to the lack of availability of cheap and nutritious food. It's a myth. If there is an issue about feeding kids, I would suggest that's around parenting issues rather than the availability of good food at a reasonable price. I'm just waiting for the hangman's noose to come now in the comment section. Now you know why I don't do political stuff. But it's true, and I've demonstrated in numerous videos you can buy stuff very cheaply still in the UK. So I would make the most of it while you can. What else have we got going on? I apologise if I'm missing comments. It is quite difficult to catch as they go up. Because the more I look at that, the more I lose my train of thought. Where are we? Stagnate for years. We're following a path Japan's been on. I'm amazed Japan's succeeded, to be honest. I'm not sure if we will go in the same direction as Japan. They do have a different way of running their economy. But we are going to have a tough, I would say, several years. It's not going to be just this year with the economy. Nearly on the mark there, Dave. I'm assuming that's my comment on food. Little Aldi fruit and veg is so cheap, Sean says. You're absolutely right. It's 14 pence for a bag of carrots. I mean, come on. You know, if you, I eat, not as you're probably interested, but I eat fresh vegetables every single night. Unless I'm having something special and I fancy some chips, French fries, or I want to make a curry, so I have rice. But generally, when I get home from work, I'm on a bit of a time schedule thing because I like to get my stuff cooked and sat down, and then I can enjoy the rest of my day. So I have religiously almost potatoes, carrots, cauliflower, broccoli, and some kind of meat. And without going to bore you too much, essentially all the veggies go into a steamer, which goes in the microwave, and 11 minutes later, they're out. So they're not being fried, they're not being boiled to death. So I'm getting every single day. There is the price of fresh veggies. All right, cauliflowers have gone up quite a bit actually, but it's kind of seasonal variations. Everything's coming from overseas now this time of year for cauliflowers and such like. But it is cheap. There is no excuse that you can have and cook very quickly fresh veggies every day. The meat probably isn't so healthy because although I grill rather than fry or deep fry, I do get through a few sausages, which are not the healthiest thing in the world. But hey, you know, at my age, it's not going to make much difference. What else have we got? Go to your local one stop at around 8 o'clock, pick up a bag of potatoes for 10p. Yeah, shelf life stuff. There's lots of people. When did I see that? It kind of stick in my brain. We went through a phase, and I can't remember when it was. And I can't remember what the issue was, but I remember we went through a period in the UK of probably about 3 or 4 months. It might have been during that last austerity period we had, and I used a different supermarket. And I wondered why all of a sudden there was this mad rush of people all descended on the supermarket within the space of half an hour. It like went from a few people to literally hundreds. And I saw all these little cages coming out. The shop workers were bringing out these cages, sort of racks of trays of stuff. And it turned out that's what it was. They were wheeling out the racks of all of the meat and the vegetables and the bread and such like that had a best use by or best before date of either that day or the day after. But what really stunned me was the amount of people. It was like everybody was waiting because that's what they depended on. And it wouldn't surprise me if that comes around again, particularly as we head towards the end of this year and the economic crisis starts to bite. But it just does go to show there are people that their budget, it requires them to do that. I've started something now in the comments. People's personal choices. Yeah, you see, that's why I don't do politics. Healthy food, some cities there are not any grocery stores within walking distance. Shawnee, yeah, that is a point actually here as well. The more rural you get, the less access you've got, or easy access you've got to those big supermarkets, and you are then dependent on your little local shop. And in more rural areas, there aren't many of those. Everybody now, we've kind of gone into this society where you absolutely have to have a car in order to function, whether that's to drive somewhere to go to work, or whether it's, in the case that you're talking about, to drive to go to the big supermarkets to get those discount prices or to buy in bulk to save money. When the meat's about to go off, it can be cooked to extend life. Yes, it can. They've burned them down. Oh, you see, now we're starting even more politics in the States. Can't beat Richmond sausage, says Sean. You're absolutely right. You can't. Though having said that, one of my real treats that I used to look forward to, because I do like, American viewers might not know this, but a part of the UK called the Lake District. It's all mountains and lakes. That's why it's called the Lake District. But they have a Cumberland sausage there, and it's part of the breakfast meal, and they are outstanding. Proper Cumberland sausage that you buy in there, not just some factory that churns out something called Cumberland, which there are a lot of now. What else we got? I'm just looking at the time. We're actually over. Well, I generally stick to that 1 hour religiously. We've started an argument about sausages now. It's all going horribly wrong. Oh dear. Well, I hope that you've got something out of today's live stream. There has been a bit of variety of topic, and I've kind of gone off piste a couple of times. Hopefully I've not said anything that's too contentious, that's upset anybody or has upset the YouTube algorithm. But yeah, it's nice to see people having that conversation in the comments section, and it's I'm getting to recognise quite a lot of the people in the conversation. It's nice to see that little community building up, which is what this is all about, really. It is trying to build a community and trying to share information with people. As I often say, I'm not the world's expert in anything, but I am learning a lot, and equally I'm making quite a lot of mistakes as I go, but hopefully that does help you. So the things that I get right, hopefully you can learn from that and say, well, we know that works because look, he's done it on the video. Or alternatively, which happens fairly regularly, clearly that doesn't work because look, he's just buggered it up. So hopefully you are getting something out of this. If anybody wants to throw any last minute questions, comments my way, hello from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Bernard or Bernard. There's a few people kind of drifting in that I've not seen before. If you have got any last minute comments, questions, suggestions, chuck them in now. If there aren't any more that crop up, I'll gradually wind this down because it is getting close to my bedtime now, and it's a work day tomorrow. And I'm just waiting to see what happens when I look out the window tomorrow, whether I've got a clear road or I've got a road full of snow. Just laughing at the comment. I'll not read it out. Oh, don't start about peanut butter. You see, I've set everybody off now. Who's got the best sausages, etc. Okay, I'm going to give it a wind up there. So I hope you have enjoyed it today. I hope you've got some benefit out of it today. I will be on the weekend, and hopefully we'll be doing some planting. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens with this snow, but fingers crossed. Either way, there'll be something for a video for you. Don't forget also, I'll be doing the draw for the prize giveaway. So something there to look forward to as well. And we'll see what else we can get done. Maybe we'll get an extra video out on Sunday. Time will tell, I guess. But for today, thanks again for everybody for turning up. Do appreciate your support on the live streams, and I really do appreciate your support and your comments in the normal weekly videos. Whatever you're doing, please do stay safe, and I hope that everybody, you and your family, are doing well. And I look forward to seeing you in the next live stream and the next video. But for today, thanks very much. See you all later.